Welcome to Zreya Wealth channel. It's me 𝗙𝗵𝗿𝗁 once again here, and we have Venkatesh with us today. And I hope you have watched our previous video on behavioral finance and biased behavior of customers. So today we are going to discuss about loss aversion bias. So exactly what is this loss aversion bias, Venkatesh?
See, there is a saying which goes like not taking risk is a huge risk. Okay, so when we talk about loss aversion, that is what comes to anybody's mind. Loss aversion is nothing but non-willingness to take any kind of risk, and they feel whatever investment that they had made, even though it is not generating the right kind of returns, they feel it is always safe. To take an example, if you look at the current way in which the FD rates, okay, the fixed deposits in banks. So a lot of people think that FDs or RDs are the safest investment options. So if you look at the return from a FD, how much currently the FD rates are?
It's dwindling very low, some 4-5%, 6%.
5%, and even for a senior citizen, it might be 6 to 6.5% is what the current FD rates are, right? So if you need to calculate something which is called as a real return from a fixed deposit. Real return is nothing but the returns that is shown in the card, that is whatever the bank says, that minus inflation. Okay, once you reduce the inflation button, what is the current average inflation if you look at?
So right now it is 7%.
Let us take it as 5.5%. Okay, on an average, if you look at the last 6-7 years average, if you look at 5.5%, for the calculation purpose, let us take it. If that is the case, the real return is like what you get from the bank minus inflation. How much is that?
It's almost negative, right?
It is. If you take 5.5%, it is hardly 6.5 minus 5.5 is 1%. Okay. On top of that 1% of return that you get, you need to pay something which is TDS, or there is a tax element attached to it. So, however you look at FD as an investment product, is something which is not going to give you any kind of return. More or less, it is similar to keeping that money under your pillow. But still, there is a huge section of people who believe that FD is a very safest investment. Any other investment option that I look at, there is a chance of losing money. And again, over here, if you look at with the kind of returns that an FD generates over a longer period of time on the wealth creation process, it is a negative return making investment option. And one more thing to be noted, it is not that FD is not a good investment option. And with that 6.5% or 6% of returns what an FD generates, he can live his life peacefully without taking any tension. That is absolutely fine for those kind of people. They can park their money in FD. There is nothing wrong in that. If somebody needs to generate a decent return so that they can build a retirement corpus, or they can in future they can manage their expenses, if that is the case, then parking their money in FD is a very bad choice. Why people do that? Because people feel any other investment option, anything market related, is risky. So if they put their money into risky investment, they will lose. But the reality is completely different. Until unless you don't take that minimum risk that is required, you may not be able to fulfill your basic financial goals in place. So risk aversion is the unwillingness to take the right kind of risk. That is what is risk aversion is. And what happens over here on a longer period of time, let's say, let us for an example, let us take a person in his early 40s, okay, and he has to retire in another 10 years time. So what happens to him if he keep on parking his surplus amount into a FD or RD? How does that impact as per your understanding? What do you think?
What I feel is that if I'm okay with that kind of risk, right, it may not be risk aversion, right? I'm okay with that risk. My risk appetite is like that. So, or I might be thinking in the perspective like a penny saved is a penny earned, right? It is also an earning for me. What if I'm not putting monthly 1,000 rupees into it or in an RD? That 1,000 rupees is adding on to that. But it is savings. But in an investment point of view, over a period of time after doing certain savings, I should thinking about taking some kind of, that's what I also feel. So what you say is like after having considerable amount of savings, even if I'm still stuck with that instrument, so in that way, what you are trying to say is like, am I still averse to risk even after having considerable amount of savings? I'm still not taking it, or should I never look at savings instruments at all?
It from a different perspective, the same case what I had asked you, a person who is in his early 40s and he is still putting his money in FD or RD. If with that particular returns, okay, he has to do his retirement planning calculation, okay, with whatever savings or surplus that he is putting in his FD or RD, is able to ensure that he can meet that retirement corpus and post-retirement expenses, then it is absolutely fine. But in most of the cases, right, if you look at the practical scenario of it, if somebody who in their early 40s and putting their money in RD or FD alone, may not be able to reach that retirement corpus requirement. So if after understanding this they will not be able to achieve that retirement corpus requirement and still sitting on in FD with a lower return, that is something which we practically call it as risk aversion bias. Okay, they have to take risk. If they don't take risk, then they will not be able to achieve that goal. Let us put it in a simple way. It's like a cricket match, right? You got let's say 10 hours in hand. You need to score only 20 runs. How you will play? Will you play aggressive or you play defensive?
Defensive.
You have the option to play defensive, right? So that is what is the case. If in your 40s itself you have got enough corpus in place to manage your retirement or any other future goals, then you can play defensive. At the same time, let us go back to the cricket match example. You got only 6 balls left and you need to score 18 runs. Can you play defensive? Is there any chance of winning if you play defensive?
No.
You have to go aggressive, right? Same way in the 40s, if your retirement corpus, to achieve that retirement corpus, if you want to take some risk, then only you can win the game. Okay, you cannot be defensive, you cannot be risk averse when in 6 balls you need to score 18 runs. You cannot say that I will not take any risk, let us see how it works, I will take only singles and doubles, and the match you cannot win is more or less, it is 100% guaranteed. That is what is called as risk aversion. Is according to the circumstances you need to plan for. But where people get stuck is like even knowing that they need a higher returns in place to ensure their goals to be achieved without taking that risk is what we call it as risk aversion. And the sad part is there is still a huge population in our country who are very much scared to take any amount of risk and still believe in the traditional saving products which meagerly create any decent returns. Okay, inflation adjusted returns, a positive return is something which is very much you can't say it is even zero as well. Many people are stuck with that because of this risk aversion, and as a country to grow, the economy to grow, there has to be participation of the public savings into the market. That is something which is we are yet to reach that threshold of people getting into investing into equity markets and other instruments rather than the old traditional products. It is good. A traditional product is good for people who has got that kind of profile and risk profile and who has got that kind of substantial money to manage with that kind of returns. For them, it is not an issue. For others, this risk aversion is a huge problem, and people who are watching this video should definitely understand FD or RD alone will not help them in the normal circumstances to achieve all their future goals and to for their long-term wealth creation process. So this is what the risk aversion bias.
There should be some kind of asset diversification as well, right?
Asset diversification also has to be there, and a risk according to the risk profiling, the person must be able to take a calculated risk in place so that he can make a decent return.
Yes, maybe from the cricketing example, right?
Exactly.
So there we have a lot of time here.
Correct.
So we have to do the opposite, right? So
Correct.
there when the cricketing, like when there's less time, they take risk.
True.
So here we have more time, we can definitely take risk. So
True,
as
true,
you said,
true.
like a 40-year-old person, and if he's having 20 years for his retirement, so he can definitely take some amount of risk rather than parking everything in a...
If he is not taking risk, that is the biggest risk that he is taking.
Yeah, that
as
is
I told
risk
initially,
yes.
not taking risk is a huge risk.
Okay.
In a different perspective.
Okay. Not taking risk itself is a risk aversion.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay. So thank you very much, Venkatesh, for that useful piece of information on risk aversion bias. I hope it will be very useful for our viewers and investor community as well. So thank you very much, Venkatesh. So please do subscribe to our channel. I hope it was useful for you, and also add your valuable comments so that we can bring in more such contents to you. Thank you.